Welcome to the Tradier Rundown. I am Jim Uriel, and as always, Bob Iacino is with me here. So the rundown today is going to be kind of a broad angle look at some themes from 2024. You know that I'm going to say that I think the biggest deal for 2024 is the potential Fed pivot. Do you agree, or what else do you think comes into play?
I think it's big. I think it's very big, but I think geopolitics might actually, at least maybe for the first quarter or two, surpass what the Fed does, because the Fed, I believe, has already pivoted, which you predicted it and it happened, right?
No, I predicted it a year before it happened, so let's not.
Yeah, I mean, you kept predicting it over and over again, so eventually you're going to be right. But, it ended up in a situation where now the Fed has pivoted in their stance, and now it's in their action. So at some point, they'll probably cut rates, and now our market's kind of arguing about how deep those cuts are going to be and when they're going to happen. And if they don't happen, the market just shifts it to the next month. It's to the next meeting. So it's not really like a big deal, right?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying there. I still think risk assets like lower rates. They like the notion that the Fed is pivot. Historically, there's one big plunge in equity prices that pushed the Fed to actually not just talk about lowering rates, to actually lower rates. I am concerned about that. But the fact that you can buy put protection with a VIX that's averaging under 13, the 20-year historical average is 19. I'm comfortable being long, then I'm pretty protected. I'll take those hedges off if it plunges and hopefully buy the dip, which, by the way, it's a lot easier to talk about buying the dip than it is to actually buy the dip. You just mentioned geopolitics. Why is crude prices so low if we're worried about things flaring up in the Middle East?
Well, I mean, I think the fact is that the U.S. has smashed its old production record. And one of the things I keep talking about, how that's going to be a short-lived phenomenon, short-lived relative to the entire crude oil cycle. So you might see some pretty high production in the first, second quarter of next year, third quarter, fourth quarter. But then you're going to start to see it trickle off. And unless policy changes, or all of a sudden, it's a come to Jesus for the drillers, where they just decide we need to spend capital and actually put new rigs in the ground. But as we've talked about before, it's three to 5 year process to get those wells to produce. Basically, the U.S. is ceding the power to control the oil prices to OPEC.
Well, do you think that could change back in the election at the end of 2024?
Potentially, but it could be too little too late, simply because of the amount of time we've been in sort of this restrictive drilling policy. So, you have the larger drillers saying, we are not really going to spend because they hate our industry. And if that changes, they have to spend, lease, explore, drill, and produce. It's a 3 to 5 year thing.
Okay, so here's another question, and something I wrote about a little bit today, is that we used to think of the Republicans as war hawks and the Democrats as peaceniks, right? Yeah. I mean, that was a common thing. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about what we used to think. Well, now it seems like the Democrats are very, very comfortable walking us closer and closer to what could be some sort of global conflict that involves us. And the Republicans haven't really changed much. Is this a recipe for the defense stocks? And I looked at that one ETF, the Spider Defense ETF, and it's right at highs that it seems like a really, really interesting resistance spot. What do you think of the defense names for 2024?
I think it is an opportunity. And besides the fact, again, we're not talking politically. The Republicans that all of a sudden seem anti-war are more anti-Democrat than they are anti-war. So they're just taking the other side of the party that they oppose. So I think it is an opportunity. And that's why I think geopolitics will be the big thing. There's some elections that people aren't talking about as well that matter. I mean, Vladimir Putin's running again. He's gonna. One of my biggest predictions for 2024, he wins again. But Panama, which could affect the price of copper, Venezuela, which could affect the price of oil. So there's a lot going on.
But when you say they could affect the price of copper or affect the price of oil, you mean they could affect them, pushing them higher if a wild card happens. There's nothing in that election that could depress the price. Like is one of those people are going to be not business as usual. We got to drill, dig. So that's what you're saying, I think, right?
Yes, supply side, 100% agree.
What other theme are we missing for 2024? What's the one thing that you think?
The inversion of the curve, turning back to normalization, and historically, that has meant a drop in equity prices initially. And then equity prices bottom after the curve is normalized. I think that's something that a lot of people are talking about.
And I have that steeping around, and I have it on for two reasons. One, I think that if burning timber start falling from the ceiling, and I know that I use that metaphor a lot, but I think it's good. The Fed will all of a sudden start lowering short end rates. But if burning embers don't fall and the Fed just is fine keeping short end rates where they are, I think eventually the Treasury has to move further out the curve to raise funds and could depress prices on the long end. You like that trade?
I do. And I think to hear more about it, what people have to do is tune into our show, The Trader's Edge, 3 o'clock Eastern time live. But the show we're about to record, you got to watch the replay of that one because we're going to be talking about our predictions for 2024.
Very cool. Thank you.